All right, get ready. Today we're diving deep into a world that's exploding right now, carbon accounting. We're zeroing in on ISO 14764. That's like a golden ticket to amazing opportunities, both for you and for your clients.
It's fascinating because it's way more than just being eco-friendly. The standard, it's becoming like the language of business, and everyone's talking about sustainability.
So let's break this down a little bit. Think about a can of Coke. Simple, right?
Yeah.
But behind that fizzy goodness, there's a whole carbon footprint hiding. From the factory to the store to your fridge, it all adds up.
You got it, and that's just one tiny product. Now picture entire industries. They're all scrambling to figure out what their impact on the planet is. That's where ISO 14064 swoops in.
Yeah.
It's not just about rules, it's a strategic plan, a framework for businesses to really measure, manage, and tell everyone about those emissions.
It's kind of like the difference between knowing the rules at school and actually buckling down to study for that big exam. You don't want to just scrape by, you want to ace it. ISO 14064, it's like that serious exam trip, giving you the edge in a world where suddenly everyone wants a piece of that carbon expertise.
It's spot on, and this ties back to something we talked about before, that inquiry form. It's packed with questions about how sustainable a company is, right?
Yeah.
Well, if you know ISO 14064 inside and out, you can answer those questions like a pro. You're showing clients you're the one they need because they have to prove they're serious about tackling climate change.
So it's not just about ticking boxes to follow the rules, it's about opening doors to new possibilities. Could you give us a little taste of how this plays out in different industries?
Absolutely. Let's take the palm oil industry, for instance. They're already dealing with sustainability standards like RSPO, trying to be sustainable. But with ISO 14064 in your toolkit, you can help them take it up a notch.
Instead of just meeting the bare minimum, they can actually show how much they're reducing their carbon footprint.
Exactly. It's about attracting those customers and investors who care about the planet. They see that a company is serious, not just saying words.
So you're turning what could be a headache, just complying with rules, into something that gives them a leg up on the competition.
Precisely. And it's not just palm oil. Look at the construction industry here in Malaysia. They have standards like MS 125 and MS ISO 50001 that are pushing for energy efficiency. But imagine if you could help a construction company actually calculate how much carbon they're saving with their designs, all thanks to your knowledge of ISO 14064.
They could attract clients who are specifically looking for eco-friendly buildings, maybe even charge a bit more for that.
Exactly. And what about companies listed on Bursa Malaysia? Sustainability reporting, it's encouraged, but there's no strict standard. You, armed with ISO 14064 and those global frameworks like GRI, you become their go-to guru, helping them create these awesome sustainability reports that attract investors who are all about ESG.
Wow, that sounds like a seriously valuable skill set to have. But let's be real, learning something this complex can feel a bit overwhelming. What makes this particular workshop stand out?
That's where the University of Technology Sarawak, UTS, comes in with their program. They offer a certificate of practice, and it's not just about theory. It's hands-on, real-world project experience, showing you can actually walk the walk with ISO 14064 home.
It's like learning to swim by jumping in the pool, not just reading about it in a book.
Yeah.
And this certificate is a big deal. It's backed by MPC and certified by SGS, a global leader in sustainability for years.
Absolutely. SGS brings instant credibility. They've consistently been named the top dog in the Dow Jones sustainability indices for, forever. Having their stamp on your certificate tells clients you're the real deal, no doubt.
So we're not just talking about learning a standard here, are we? This is about positioning yourself at the forefront of a movement that's happening globally.
It really is. And that's the beauty of ISO 14064. It's not a rigid set of rules. It's a passport to a world of possibilities where businesses are actively searching for guidance.
And speaking of those possibilities, let's dive into the nuts and bolts of how ISO 14064 actually works. What are the core pieces that make this framework tick?
It's actually beautifully structured. Think of it like a symphony in 3 parts. The first movement, ISO 14064-1, is all about creating an inventory of a company's emissions. It's about understanding their carbon footprint from A to Z.
So kind of like taking stock of all the ingredients in that can of Coke and figuring out their impact, right?
You got it. Now, the second movement, ISO 14064-2, this one zooms in on specific projects that aim to reduce those emissions. Let's say a company decides to switch to solar power. This section helps them measure how effective that project actually is at shrinking their footprint.
So it's not just about doing something green for the sake of it. It's about proving it actually works.
Precisely. And finally, we have the grand finale, ISO 140643. This is where the auditors take center stage, verifying and validating all the data. It ensures that companies aren't just making claims, but are actually walking the walk when it comes to reducing emissions.
It's like having a referee, making sure everyone's playing fair and keeping things honest. So we've
Yep.
got the inventory, the project evaluation, and then that independent check to make sure it's all legit. It's a pretty comprehensive system.
Exactly. And that's what gives ISO 14064 its power. It's not just a box-ticking exercise, it's about building a genuinely sustainable future, one verified emission reduction at a time.
All right, I'm already getting fired up about this, but I'm curious, how does all this actually translate into serving your clients' needs in the real world?
Let's go back to that palm oil industry example for a sec. Remember how we talked about going beyond simply meeting the basic RSPO requirement?
Yeah, it was about showcasing a genuine commitment to lessening their environmental impact, not just doing the absolute minimum.
Exactly. With ISO 14064 knowledge, you can help those producers actually measure and verify how much they're reducing their carbon footprint. That data, it becomes a powerful tool for them. Imagine them confidently saying, our palm oil production has X% less of a carbon footprint than our competitors.
Wow. It's not just a feel-good story anymore. It's hard, verifiable evidence that could really sway both customers and investors.
You nailed it. It could even open up doors to new markets that prioritize products with a lower carbon footprint. Some buyers might even be willing to pay a premium for that kind of assurance.
So sustainability, it's not just an ethical thing. It actually becomes a way to boost profits.
Yeah, I love that. Now, what about the construction industry? How does ISO 14064 help them stand out?
Remember those Malaysian standards pushing for energy-efficient buildings? Well, if you're armed with ISO 14064 expertise, you can go beyond just meeting the minimum requirements. You can help those construction companies calculate and verify exactly how much carbon their energy-efficient designs are saving. So it's not just about building green buildings. They can actually prove how much carbon they're saving compared to conventional construction methods.
Precisely. That becomes a massive selling point for clients and investors who are really conscious of their environmental impact. They're looking for tangible proof that their choices are making a difference. Those companies could even use this data to snag green building certifications, which can attract higher-paying tenants and boost their property values.
It's like they're turning a commitment to sustainability into a tangible, marketable asset. Now, what about those listed companies on Bursa Malaysia? How can ISO 14064 make an impact there?
Well, remember, sustainability reporting is encouraged but not mandatory on Bursa Malaysia. This is where you, with your ISO 14064 expertise, become a rock star. You can help these companies craft sustainability reports that aren't just thorough, but also super credible and aligned with global standards.
It's about helping them stand out from the crowd, grabbing the attention of investors who are specifically seeking out companies with a strong commitment to ESG principles.
Exactly. And that's the magic of ISO 13644. It gives you a framework to turn those fuzzy sustainability aspirations into concrete, verifiable action.
This is blowing my mind, but let's be honest, this stuff is a lot to take in. What makes this workshop so crucial for someone who's just dipping their toes into the world of carbon accounting?
The secret sauce is bridging the gap between knowing the theory and actually putting it into practice. This workshop doesn't just throw a ton of information at you. It equips you with the tools and experience to make ISO 14064 work for you in the real world.
That's where the Certificate of Practice from UTS through MPC really shines. You're not just learning about the standard, you're rolling up your sleeves and using it.
You got it. It's the difference between reading about playing the piano and actually sitting down and performing a piece. This certificate proves to potential clients that you're not just familiar with the concept, you're a skilled player in the carbon accounting game.
And having that certificate validated by SGS adds even more weight to your credentials.
Absolutely. SGS has built their reputation on decades of experience and unwavering commitment to quality and integrity. Their stamp of approval carries a ton of weight, especially in the global market.
So it's not just a piece of paper. It's a testament to your competence and a key that can open countless doors in the carbon accounting world.
You nailed it. This workshop goes beyond just learning a standard. It's about empowering you to become a trusted advisor, a sought-after expert in a field that's shaping the future of business.
Okay, I officially hooked. But before we get too carried away, let's take a step back and address the elephant in the room. Why is carbon accounting such a big deal? What's driving this massive push for measuring and reducing emissions?
Well, there's the undeniable truth of climate change, of course. The science is clear. What we're doing is having a real impact on the planet. We're seeing the consequences play out all around us: extreme weather events, rising sea levels, ecosystems going haywire.
And it's not just about saving polar bears anymore. It's hitting closer to home, right?
Mhm.
It's impacting our communities and economies in very real ways.
Exactly. And that's precisely why governments all over the world are putting policies in place to cut down on emissions. We're seeing carbon taxes, cap and trade systems, and ambitious goals for switching to renewable energy sources.
It's gone way beyond just a niche movement. It's a global shift towards a low-carbon economy.
You got it. And businesses are feeling the pressure to adapt. It's not just about complying with regulations, it's about responding to what consumers are demanding.
People are becoming much more aware of how their choices impact the environment. They're looking for sustainable products, and they want to support businesses that are taking real action.
Absolutely right. Consumers are voting with their wallets, and you know what? Investors are noticing. They're realizing that companies that brush aside sustainability are taking on bigger risks and might end up with lower returns.
So it's not just about doing the right thing anymore. It's about being smart in business.
Exactly. And that's where carbon accounting enters the picture. It gives companies that framework they need to measure, manage, and ultimately reduce their emissions. It's about positioning them for success in a world that's rapidly becoming more sustainable.
So it's about turning a potential threat into a strategic advantage.
Okay, that makes sense, but let's get down to brass tacks here. What are some of the concrete opportunities that are popping up thanks to this rise of carbon accounting? What can someone with this expertise actually do?
Well, there's the whole world of carbon offsetting. Companies that are going above and beyond their emission reduction targets can actually sell those extra reductions as credits to companies that are struggling to meet their own targets.
So it's kind of like a market for good environmental behavior, right?
Exactly. It's creating new ways to generate revenue and new investment opportunities. And we're also seeing the rise of carbon labeling. It's similar to those nutritional labels on food products.
So instead of just calories and fat content, we're now seeing the carbon footprint of our purchases. That's the idea. It empowers consumers to make informed choices and rewards companies that are truly reducing their environmental impact. And then, of course, there's the whole field of green finance, with investors pouring money into sustainable technologies and businesses leading the charge towards a low-carbon economy.
So it's not just about mitigating risks anymore. It's about actively putting your money where your mouth is and investing in a more sustainable future.
Exactly. And all these areas need people who truly understand carbon accounting. They need those skills to measure emissions, analyze data, come up with strategies, and communicate the value of sustainability to a whole range of stakeholders.
Sounds like a field ripe with opportunity. But I bet some companies might be hesitant to dive into carbon accounting because they see it as just another expense. How do you address that concern?
It's a valid point, but it's all about shifting the perspective from seeing it as an expense to seeing it as an investment. Think about it this way. By measuring their emissions, companies can uncover inefficiencies in areas where they're wasting resources.
So it's like shining a spotlight on those hidden costs that are draining their profits.
You got it. And by tackling those inefficiencies head on, they can actually save money in the long run. Plus, there's the bonus of reducing their environmental impact.
It's a win-win. And let's not forget the benefits to their reputation. Consumers are more and more likely to support businesses that are visibly committed to sustainability.
Absolutely. And investors are taking note of this as well. Companies that actively manage their environmental impact are seen as less risky and more likely to succeed over the long term.
It's about future-proofing their business and building trust with everyone involved. And let's face it, regulations are only going to get stricter as the world tries to deal with climate change.
You're spot on. By investing in carbon accounting now, companies can stay ahead of the curve and avoid hefty penalties down the road. It's about being proactive and setting themselves up for success in a world where sustainability is no longer a choice but a necessity.
Okay, you've convinced me. But let's get practical. For a company that's just starting out on their carbon accounting journey, what are some of the first obstacles they might encounter?
One of the biggest hurdles is data. To accurately measure emissions, you need comprehensive and reliable data from all sorts of sources. Sometimes that data might be incomplete, inconsistent, or even completely missing.
So it's about setting up those systems to capture the right data and making sure it's accurate.
Exactly. And then there's the challenge of picking the right method for measuring emissions. There are different approaches and tools out there, and choosing the best ones for a particular company or project can be tricky.
It sounds like having expert guidance can be super valuable when making those decisions.
It can be a lifesaver. And then there's the issue of internal capacity. To really make carbon accounting work, you need people within the company who are trained, who understand the standard, the methods, and the reporting requirements.
So companies need to invest in training and development to build that expertise internally.
You nailed it. And last but not least, there's the challenge of keeping up with this constantly changing landscape of regulations and standards. The field of carbon accounting is always evolving, and businesses need to stay informed about the latest developments.
So it's about being committed to learning and staying ahead of the game.
Exactly. And that's precisely where resources like this workshop become incredibly valuable. It provides a structured learning environment with expert guidance and hands-on experience, giving individuals and businesses the confidence to navigate the complexities of carbon accounting.
So it's about equipping yourself with the knowledge and skills you need to not just survive, but thrive in a world that's rapidly embracing sustainability.
You've got it. And it's about contributing to something bigger than ourselves. It's about playing our part in building a more sustainable future for everyone.
Beautifully said. I'm already eager to learn more. Where do we go from here?
In the next part of our deep dive, we'll break down the specific requirements of ISO 1.064 and see how they translate into real-world action. We'll also explore those exciting career opportunities waiting for anyone who masters this powerful framework.
I can't wait. So stay tuned for Deal White, part 2 of our carbon accounting deep dive. We'll be right back after a quick break. And we're back. I don't know about you, but I'm still buzzing from that first part. We dug into the why behind carbon accounting. It's clear businesses need to step up their game, right?
Absolutely.
And then we talked about that powerful tool, ISO 14064. But now I'm really itching to get to the how.
Now that's where things get really interesting. Let's get our hands dirty and dive into the nitty-gritty of the standard. Remember those 3 parts we mentioned earlier?
Yeah.
It's like having a roadmap guiding you through every single step of the carbon accounting process.
Okay, so let's start with ISO 140641. Creating that inventory of a company's carbon footprint, the one we said was super important.
Right. Think of it like a detective case. You're on a mission to uncover every single source of emissions coming from a company's operations. We're talking about the energy they use in their buildings, fuel for their vehicles, even emissions from all that business travel they do. It all matters.
It's like putting together a giant jigsaw puzzle, isn't it?
Exactly.
And it's not just about what's happening within their own 4 walls, right? We also have to look at their entire supply chain.
You got it. That's a critical point. We call those indirect emissions. Think about the emissions produced while manufacturing the raw materials that a company uses, or even the emissions from getting rid of their products at the end of their life cycle. It all adds up.
So we're painting a complete picture of a company's impact.
Yeah.
From the very beginning to the very end.
Absolutely. And once you've identified all these sources, it's time to put a number on them. How much is each source contributing to their overall carbon footprint?
This is where things start to get a bit technical, right?
Yeah, it can be. But luckily, ISO 140641 gives you guidance on choosing the right methods and tools for this step. There's no one-size-fits-all solution. The method you go with will depend on the specific industry, the company's size, and how complex their operations are.
So it's not as simple as just plugging numbers into a calculator.
Yep.
You've got to choose the right tools for the job.
Exactly. And once you've got those emissions quantified, it's time to create a plan to manage them. This might mean setting targets for reducing emissions, implementing ways to be more energy efficient, or even looking into options for offsetting those emissions.
This is about turning data into action, making a real change.
Absolutely. ISO 140641 really stresses the importance of being transparent and having good quality data throughout this whole process. Companies need reliable systems for collecting, managing, and reporting their emissions data. And that data has to be accurate, reliable, and something you can verify.
It's about building trust and showing that you're genuinely committed to making a difference, not just slapping a green label on things.
You got it. So ISO 14064-1, it's that foundation for understanding, measuring, managing, and reporting emissions at the company level. It's the first crucial step towards a more sustainable way of doing business.
Okay, that's a great overview of ISO 1406441. Now let's move on to part 2, ISO 140642, which focuses on specific projects. What's the main difference here?
Think of it this way. We're zooming in on those initiatives that are specifically designed to cut down emissions. Maybe company is investing in renewable energy, or they're starting a program to reduce waste, or perhaps they're even planting trees to offset their emissions. ISO 140642 gives us the guidelines for measuring the actual impact of these projects.
So we're talking about proving that these projects are really moving the needle, making a real difference.
Exactly. And a big concept here is establishing a baseline. This baseline shows us what would have happened if the project hadn't been put into place.
It's like setting a benchmark to measure progress against.
You got it. By comparing the actual emissions with those baseline emissions, you can pinpoint the impact of the project and figure out just how effective it is at reducing those greenhouse gases.
We're talking about putting numbers to the benefits, right?
Yeah.
Showing that the project is delivering what it promised.
Absolutely. And ISO 140642 also emphasizes the importance of keeping an eye on things, monitoring the project over time. You want to make sure it's delivering those expected results.
So it's not just a one-time checkup. It's about continuous evaluation.
Precisely. And all the data you collect during that monitoring phase, it needs to be analyzed and reported transparently. This helps track progress, pinpoint any roadblocks, and make adjustments along the way.
It's a dynamic process, always adapting and striving for improvement.
You've got it. And of course, we have to acknowledge that there's always some uncertainty when you're estimating emissions. ISO 140642 helps with assessing and quantifying this uncertainty, making sure the reported results are both reliable and transparent.
It's about being honest about the limitations of the data and acknowledging that there might be a margin of error.
Precisely. So ISO 140642 is all about providing a robust and transparent framework for measuring the impact of those projects, making sure they hit those emission reduction targets, and reporting those results accurately and reliably.
So we're turning good intentions into measurable, verifiable action. Okay, now for the grand finale. ISO 140643. This is where the auditors step into the spotlight, right?
You got it. This is the quality control stage. It's about making sure that the data companies and projects are reporting is accurate, reliable, and something you can trust.
It's like having an independent judge to make sure everyone's playing fair.
Exactly. ISO 140643 lays out the principles and requirements for conducting verification and validation. Verification is about checking that the emissions data is accurate and complete, and that the methods used to calculate those emissions are solid. It's making sure those reported emissions reflect what's really happening.
So making sure the numbers add up.
Exactly. Validation goes a step further by looking at the overall credibility and believability of the claims about emission reductions.
It's about making sure those claims hold water and aren't just greenwashing.
You got it. ISO 140643 covers everything, from who's qualified to do the verifying and validating to the actual audit procedures and what needs to be reported.
It's about making sure the whole process is rigorous, transparent, and completely independent.
Absolutely. This standard provides that extra layer of assurance for stakeholders. It confirms that the emissions data being reported is accurate, reliable, and can be trusted.
It's like the gold standard for carbon accounting, bringing that credibility and confidence that businesses need to show they're truly committed to sustainability.
You said it. And that's the strength of ISO 14064 as a whole. It's this all-encompassing framework covering every step of the carbon accounting journey, from figuring out those emissions to verifying and validating the results.
It's about bringing rigor, transparency, and accountability to the world of sustainability.
You're right. And as businesses all over the globe are waking up to the urgency of dealing with climate change, ISO 15064 is becoming the go-to standard for those who are serious about making a real impact.
And so we've walked through the 3 pillars of ISO 14064. It's a pretty impressive framework. Now, let's see how this plays out in the real world in different sectors. Can you give us some tangible examples of how companies are actually using this standard to their advantage?
Definitely. Let's start with the energy sector. Power generation companies are using ISO 14062 to measure and report their emissions from burning fossil fuels. It helps them track their progress as they shift towards cleaner sources of energy.
So it's a crucial tool for measuring how quickly we're decarbonizing the energy sector.
Exactly. And over in the manufacturing world, companies are using ISO 14064 to assess the carbon footprint of their products. It's about understanding the environmental impact from the moment those raw materials are sourced, through the entire manufacturing process, and even to the transportation of those finished goods.
This is becoming increasingly important as consumers demand more sustainable products.
Absolutely. They want to know the whole story behind the products they're buying.
Right.
And in the transportation sector, we've got airlines, shipping companies, and logistics providers using ISO 13064 to measure and report their emissions from fuel consumption.
It's about making sure that global trade is happening in a more sustainable way.
Exactly. And it goes beyond just reducing emissions. It's also about finding ways to be more efficient and optimize their operations.
So sustainability isn't just a cost. It can actually drive innovation and lead to cost savings.
You nailed it. And even in the financial world, we're seeing ISO 14064 being used to evaluate the climate risks of investments and to back development of those green financial products.
So we're talking about integrating sustainability right into the heart of how financial decisions are made.
Precisely. So as you can see, ISO 14064 is like a Swiss Army knife, a versatile tool that's being used across a wide range of industries to push us toward a more sustainable future.
It's seriously inspiring stuff. Now, let's switch gears for a bit and talk about the job opportunities in this field, which is just booming right now.
This is where things get really exciting for those looking to make a real difference. As the demand for carbon accounting expertise skyrockets, we're seeing this surge in new and diverse career paths.
Okay, paint me a picture. What kind of roles are we talking about here?
Well, you've got your carbon accountant, the data whiz. They're the ones gathering, analyzing, and reporting all those greenhouse gas emissions for companies and projects. They're the backbone of this whole operation.
They're the ones bringing those numbers to life, telling the story hidden within all that data.
Exactly. And they're not just number crunchers. They're involved in developing strategies for reducing emissions and working with different teams within the company to find those opportunities for improvement.
It sounds like a role that needs both those technical chops and strong communication skills.
You hit the nail on the head. And then there are the sustainability consultants. They're the big picture thinkers, the ones advising companies on a whole range of sustainability issues, with carbon accounting as a major focus.
So they're helping companies come up with and implement those broad sustainability strategies that go beyond just carbon emissions.
Exactly. They're looking at the entire environmental footprint, finding areas that could be improved, and helping companies make smarter, more sustainable choices.
It's like they're the sustainability coaches, guiding companies towards that greener future.
That's a great way to put it. And often these consultants specialize in certain sectors. You might have one who's an expert in the energy industry or another who focuses on manufacturing or transportation, you name it.
So they bring that in-depth understanding of the specific challenges and opportunities within those industries.
Exactly. They can tailor their advice and strategies to fit their clients' unique needs.
So we got the number crunchers and the big picture strategists. What other roles are out there?
Oh, we can't forget about the verification and validation pros. They're the ones making sure the entire system is trustworthy. They're like those independent auditors, double-checking the data, making sure the methodologies are sound, and verifying that those emission reductions are the real deal.
They're the guardians of credibility in the world of carbon accounting, ensuring everything is above board.
Exactly. They're essential for building trust and ensuring that companies are held accountable for their environmental claims.
It's a role that demands serious attention to detail and an unwavering commitment to ethical practices.
You got it. And then there's the exciting realm of carbon finance. This field is absolutely exploding as new financial tools and markets are emerging to support our transition to a low-carbon economy.
What kinds of roles are we talking about here?
Think about carbon credit traders, analysts who are evaluating the risks and opportunities of carbon offsetting projects, or even specialists who are designing and structuring green bonds to attract investors who are looking to support sustainable initiatives.
Wow. It sounds like a fast-paced, dynamic field right at the cutting edge of innovation.
It absolutely is. And the demand for professionals with expertise in both finance and climate change is growing at an incredible rate.
So we're witnessing this whole ecosystem of roles emerging, from those that are very data-driven to the strategic thinkers to the financial experts. It's just amazing to see so many opportunities opening up for those who are passionate about sustainability.
It is. And it goes beyond just technical skills. It's about having the right mindset. The people who really shine in this field are the ones who are driven by a genuine desire to make a positive impact, to be part of the solution to this global challenge.
It's about turning passion into purpose.
Exactly. And that's what makes this such a rewarding field. You're not just building a career, you're contributing to something much, much bigger.
This is truly inspiring. Now, I'm sure there are people listening who are thinking, this sounds amazing, but where do I even begin?
That's a great question. There are many paths into the world of carbon accounting. A strong academic foundation is a great starting point. Lots of universities now offer specialized programs in environmental science, sustainability management, or even carbon management itself.
So getting a relevant degree can really set you on the right track.
Absolutely. And beyond formal education, there are tons of professional certifications you can get, like the Certified Carbon Reduction Manager or the Certified Sustainability Professional.
Having those certifications shows potential employers that you're not messing around. You're serious about this field, and you've invested in your own professional development.
Exactly. They can give you a real leg up in the job market.
And let's not forget about the power of hands-on experience. Internships, volunteer work, even personal projects related to carbon accounting. They can all help you build a strong portfolio and gain real-world skills.
That's where opportunities like the UTS Certificate of Practice can make all the difference. You're not just reading about ISO 14064 in a textbook, you're actually applying it to a real project, gaining that hands-on experience, and earning a valuable credential all at the same time.
It's about closing that gap between theory and practice, showing that you can not only talk the talk, but also walk the walk.
Exactly. And never underestimate the power of networking. Go to industry events, join professional organizations, connect with people who are already working in the field. These are all fantastic ways to open doors to opportunities and get invaluable insights.
It's about building relationships and learning from those who are already out there making a difference.
Precisely. The carbon accounting community is incredibly welcoming and supportive. Everyone is united by that shared passion for creating a more sustainable future.
It sounds like an incredible field to be a part of. Okay, I'm ready to delve even deeper. What's next on our carbon accounting adventure?
In the final part of our deep dive, we're going to explore some of the broader trends shaping the future of carbon accounting. We'll talk about the increasing demand for transparency, the rise of those carbon markets we talked about earlier, and how carbon accounting is becoming more and more integrated with other sustainability initiatives.
It sounds like a fascinating peek into the future of business and sustainability. I can't wait.
Me neither. Stay tuned for the final chapter of our carbon accounting deep dive. We'll be right back after a short break.
We're back for the final part of our carbon accounting adventure. And wow, what a journey it's been. We've covered the basics of ISO 14064, the ins and outs of using it in the real world, and even peeked at those awesome careers it's creating.
And now it's time to look ahead to see what trends are shaping the future of this exciting field.
I love a good future forecast. So what's coming up next for carbon accounting?
Well, one of the biggest trends is this growing need for transparency. Everyone, investors, consumers, employees, they all want proof that businesses are serious about sustainability.
Yeah, just saying you're green doesn't cut it anymore. People want to see the data, those verified emissions reports, the real evidence that you're making progress.
You got it. They're demanding accountability and real action. This is pushing everyone towards carbon accounting practices that are more rigorous and standardized.
And that's where ISO 14064 really steps up. It's that globally recognized framework that brings credibility and consistency to the whole process.
Absolutely. And as technology keeps getting better, we're seeing amazing new tools and platforms that make carbon accounting way more efficient and accessible, even for smaller companies.
Oh, tell me more about these tech advancements.
Well, think about cloud-based software that makes collecting and reporting data so much easier, or powerful analytics tools that can uncover hidden insights in all that data. There's even blockchain technology being used to ensure data security and transparency. All these innovations, they're making it easier for businesses of all sizes to jump on the carbon accounting bandwagon.
It's like sustainability is becoming more democratic, allowing even smaller companies to participate and show their commitment.
Exactly. And another trend we can't ignore is the rise of those carbon markets.
Right, we touched on carbon offsetting before, and it sounds like a really cool way to incentivize businesses to actually reduce emissions.
It definitely is. As governments around the world start implementing things like carbon taxes or cap-and-trade systems, businesses are searching for ways to offset those emissions they just can't avoid. Carbon markets give companies a platform. Those that have exceeded their reduction targets can sell their extra reductions as credits to companies that are struggling to meet their own goals.
It's like a reward system for doing good for the environment.
That's a great way to put it. It's driving investment in cleaner technologies and giving businesses a financial reason to really step up their sustainability game.
It's a market-based solution for a global problem, which is pretty neat.
Exactly. And as these markets grow and mature, we're going to see even more innovation in carbon finance. Think new financial tools and mechanisms popping up to help us move towards that low-carbon economy.
It sounds like carbon accounting is evolving beyond just being a standalone activity.
It is. And that leads us to another important trend. Carbon accounting is becoming integrated into bigger sustainability frameworks.
So how does that actually work in the real world?
More and more companies are including carbon accounting in their ESG reporting, environmental, social, and governance.
Yeah, ESG is becoming the gold standard for measuring a company's overall impact, right?
Absolutely. And investors are really paying attention to these reports. They're looking for companies taking a holistic approach to sustainability because they understand that climate change is connected to a whole web of social and environmental issues.
So it's not just about reducing carbon emissions in a vacuum. It's about seeing the big picture, how all these challenges are interlinked.
You nailed it. And that's why carbon accounting is becoming such a crucial part of the broader sustainability movement. It provides that data-driven foundation, the concrete evidence that a company is serious about a greener future.
So it's about weaving sustainability into the very DNA of a company's operations.
Beautifully said. And as these trends continue to unfold, the field of carbon accounting is going to keep growing and changing.
Sounds like there's a whole universe of possibilities opening up.
You got it. There will be new challenges to overcome, new technologies popping up, and the need for skilled professionals who can navigate this complex world, it's only going to increase.
It really is a thrilling time to be a part of this movement, to be leading the charge for change.
Absolutely. It's a field packed with opportunities for both personal and professional growth. If you're passionate about making a difference, about using your talents to build a more sustainable future, then carbon accounting is a path worth exploring.
Well, this deep dive has been absolutely incredible. We've covered everything from the nitty-gritty technical details to the real-world applications, emerging trends, and those exciting career paths. It's been a whirlwind of information and inspiration.
It definitely has. I hope our listeners are feeling motivated and have a clear understanding of just how powerful carbon accounting can be.
I know I am. It's obvious that carbon accounting isn't just a niche field anymore. It's becoming vital for businesses of all sizes across all industries as we work together towards a more sustainable world.
And it's a journey that needs collaboration, innovation, and a willingness to embrace change.
I'm feeling so energized and optimistic about what's ahead.
Me too. The future is bright for those who are ready to roll up their sleeves, face the challenges head on, and be a part of the solution.
A huge thank you for joining us on this incredible deep dive into the world of carbon accounting. It's been an absolute joy exploring this fascinating field with you.
Thank you for having me. It's been a fantastic discussion.
And to all our listeners out there, remember, this journey towards a more sustainable world, it's ongoing. Every step we take, every choice we make brings us closer to a brighter, greener future. So let's keep learning, keep pushing those boundaries of innovation, and keep moving forward together.